Picture a crowded room for a second. Maybe it's a crazy networking event, a packed family dinner, or just a really chaotic open-plan office. With all that rapid-fire chatter, the constant phone pings, just the overwhelming noise everywhere, there's almost always that one person who's simply sitting back and observing. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive into a deeply profound, ancient concept that honestly feels more urgent today than ever before. We're looking at Stoic philosophy to uncover why, strangely enough, in a world that literally never stops shouting, silence is the ultimate form of power. All right, let's get into it.
Have you ever noticed that the person who speaks the least is often the most respected? Just think about the dynamics of the rooms you walk into. That quiet person? They don't interrupt. They aren't scrambling to dominate the conversation or prove themselves. But man, when they finally lean forward to speak, the whole room just naturally quiets down. Everyone stops and waits for it. Why is that? Well, in our hyper-connected culture, we kind of confuse loudness with dominance. We've been completely conditioned to think that whoever shouts the loudest, posts the most, or takes up the most oxygen in a meeting is the strongest. But we really need to ask ourselves, is keeping quiet actually a sign of passivity, or is it the most authentic, intimidating display of true strength?
So, the great Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius was arguably the most powerful man on the planet during his reign. He commanded entire armies, ruled a massive empire, and literally could have anyone silenced with a single word. And yet, his own personal guiding principle was this: if it is not better than silence, then keep quiet. Just imagine that. The guy whose voice carried the most weight in the ancient world valued silence over unnecessary decrees. Now, flash forward to today. Absolutely everyone is talking, all the time. We're blasting our thoughts online, talking over each other, texting nonstop, and usually about totally trivial stuff, just to fill the void. But the person who holds back unless it's absolutely necessary, they stand completely apart from the pack. They're operating on a totally different level because they get a core truth of human interaction. Every single word you speak has value, and preserving that value, that's a highly conscious choice.
Part 1. The True Power of Silence. Let's look at how deliberate silence acts as the ultimate form of self-discipline.
Keeping your cool when you're provoked, it is incredibly hard. It goes against our basic biology. When most of us get angry or insulted, the immediate reflex is to just snap right back. The emotional brain completely takes over. An insult gets thrown, the ego flares up, and boom, you want revenge. But a truly powerful person knows something crucial, something the Stoics completely mastered. A single sentence, spoken in a split second of burning anger, can destroy years of trust. It's exactly like throwing a lit match onto a dry forest. True strength lies in taking a breath, sitting with that uncomfortable spike of adrenaline, and controlling that primal urge to strike back.
Part 2. Emotional Control and Stoic Philosophy.
Losing yourself means losing the real battle. You see, Stoicism gives us this incredibly practical framework for navigating life, and it's all about separating what we can control from what we can't. You absolutely cannot control the outside world, not the traffic, not the economy, and definitely not what other people say to you. But you have complete, untouchable control over your own internal reaction. When someone provokes you and you lose your temper, you might feel like you're fighting back, but really, you're surrendering your power. You're basically handing them the remote control to your own emotions. They pulled a string and you danced exactly how they want it. Maintaining your silence, staying totally grounded when a storm is raging around you, is how you keep your power.
Part 3. The Value of Words and Knowledge.
Let's compare two totally different kinds of communicators. First, you've got the constant talker. Because this person is always speaking, constantly filling the air with their own opinions, the value of their words just tanks. It's basic supply and demand. They're usually just repeating what they already know, driven by ego and his desperate need to be seen. Now contrast that with the silent observer. Because they speak so rarely, when they finally do chime in, their words are treated like rare diamonds. And beyond just the value of the words, there's a massive advantage in how they gather knowledge. There's that old saying, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. If you're always talking, you literally cannot be learning. The silent observer is reading the room, figuring out motivations and adapting. True tactical advantage comes from listening. Vulnerability comes from overspeaking.
Part 4. Confidence, not weakness. Time to bust a massive societal myth.
A lion doesn't announce he's king. We've been so heavily conditioned to believe that being extroverted, loud, and constantly broadcasting yourself is the peak of confidence. But think about the loudest person in the room for a second. Often, they're talking nonstop just to prove their importance. It usually comes from deep insecurity. A genuinely confident person knows they don't have to prove a thing to anyone. Their character and steady presence do all the heavy lifting. Think about the lion metaphor. A lion doesn't wake up and shout to the jungle that he's in charge. His mere presence is enough. Truly confident people don't scream for validation. They just let their actions speak for them.
Avoiding an unnecessary battle is the biggest victory. Now, being silent doesn't mean you just sit there and let people walk all over you. Stoicism is definitely not about cowardice. It's about the supreme wisdom of knowing exactly when to speak up and when to hold back. Jumping into every single argument or correcting every bad take you see on the internet, that is just an exhausting waste of energy. Sometimes, the absolute biggest victory is realizing a battle is completely unnecessary and just walking away in total silence. You preserve your peace, your time, and your dignity.
Part 5. Practicing silence in real life. Philosophy is really only useful if we can actually use it, right? So how do we cut through the overwhelming noise of our daily lives? Here are 4 highly actionable steps you can start using today. Number 1. Use the 10-second rule before reacting. When you get triggered by a comment or a crazy email, do not reply immediately. Force yourself to wait 10 agonizing seconds. It lets your logical brain catch up so you don't do something you'll regret. Number 2. Stop trying to win every debate. Accept that some people just cannot be reasoned with. They want to misunderstand you, and you know what? That is perfectly fine. Number 3. Listen more and speak less. Try being a sponge for knowledge instead of a loudspeaker for your ego. And number 4. Reduce the oversharing on social media. You really don't need to broadcast every meal or passing thought to the world. Your worth does not depend on digital likes.
Silence is power. Not because you have nothing to say, but because keeping quiet is an active, deliberate flex of emotional control. It takes incredible strength to bite your tongue when every fiber of your being wants to lash out. The person who can master those impulses, who can just sit comfortably in the quiet, is always going to be miles ahead of everyone else in the room.
Real power doesn't make noise. It remains silent, disciplined, and unshakable. Starting today, challenge yourself to drop the unnecessary arguments. Observe the people around you a little more closely. Let your strength shine through your daily actions, not just your words. Because at the end of the day, the world respects the person who knows their own immense value, but never feels the desperate need to shout it from the rooftops.
I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on. Based on everything we've unpacked in this explainer today, take a hard look at the noise you allow into your life and the noise you put out into the world. Ask yourself, do you truly believe silence is a strength or a weakness? Take a moment to reflect on that. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we keep breaking down the profound ideas that shape our world.